Well, welcome everyone. Nice having you here. Once again, welcome back to Health Made Simple Show. Tonight is going to be a perfect example of a health topic that I'm going to do everything we can to make this simple. By the end of tonight's show, hopefully you can walk away with understanding that high blood pressure is something that we can make a change to. We absolutely can overcome it. With that being said, I'm certainly not going to come from the perspective tonight that I'm treating or curing anyone's, high blood pressure or anything. And I have to kind of say that a disclaimer. And I'm also going to say that when we take care of our bodies properly and understand the label high blood pressure, what does that mean? What is the body trying to achieve? That's a good question that we're going to be asking tonight and answering. What is the body trying to achieve when we have high blood pressure? I think when we backstep and understand that premise, we look at this and go, wow, millions, tens of millions. I think something like 30 million or more Americans have high blood pressure. And tonight we're going to give everyone an opportunity to really make this simple and overcome it.
So beautiful, Bart, and it's something that everyone has heard of. And I think it's possible, as aware as we are of it, it's so common to have maybe not a complete understanding of exactly what it means to have high blood pressure.
Yeah, I think a couple things happen here. And one, I would say it's one of the labels that becomes a tattoo. And when I say tattoo, meaning that it's on you and it never goes away. And I don't say that jokingly. Most people who have been diagnosed with high blood pressure, they walk around with their tattoo and they don't show people the tattoo, but they tell people, I have high blood pressure. Therefore, I'm on this particular medication. And unfortunately, that happens without any inclination or any aspirations of ever coming off those medications. And to some degree, and I'm going to be nice about it, but at the same time, I want to be real about it. It's to some fault that I think that the doctors aren't educating enough the patients about what high blood pressure is and how we overcome it. And I would say in a practice like mine, again, we don't treat high blood pressure. We treat human beings who have systems, organs, and glands that when they become dysfunctional, they have very specific needs. So for example, in high blood pressure, the need, quite frankly, is the body needs more oxygen being circulated throughout all the tissues and organs. So I think there's a responsibility that doctors need to kind of take a little bit, a partial, I don't know, the blame is the right word, but take partial of that part of the responsibility of educating the patients. So for the listeners tonight, there's a high likelihood that either yourself or someone you know has been diagnosed with high blood pressure and they're on medication. So the goal is not to then run to them and say, hey, you got to listen to what Dr. Bart said. That's bad. You shouldn't be on medications. Rather, share this with them because it's an opportunity for them to get better. Because what I'm also going to point out tonight is by going on blood pressure medications. And listen, if blood pressure, I'll start with this. If someone has high blood pressure, and we're going to quantify what that means, and they have it for long periods of time, it can be very damaging. It can be dangerous. So we don't want that either. Yet there's so many good, easy opportunities to make changes here. So do your best, share it out, spread the love here. This is one of the ones that I would say that 99% of the time, this is fixable.
That's such good news, Bart. And it's something that not everyone has heard before.
Correct. And I'm going to do my absolute best here to simplify. And so in the simplification will be understanding. Once we understand what the body is trying to achieve by raising the blood pressure, then we go, oh, need more oxygen? Let's figure out how we can get it. And why would you need more oxygen is another great question.
So I think it's possible, Bart, that we all have this kind of vague idea of like the numbers of what blood pressure should be and maybe what would be like out of the range. Should we start from the start? Like, what is that?
Yeah, 100%. Because the other part of it is that I think everyone should measure their own blood pressure. I think that this is something that, in a day and age that we're talking about all these different phenomenal functional medicine tests and data that we can achieve and use to our health benefit, blood pressure is one of them. One of the bigger challenges with blood pressure, especially high blood pressure, is that it is a silent killer. For the most part, there are no symptoms. And that's why they call it silent killer. This could be going on for years, months even for that matter, or months and if that matter, years, for long periods of time with people never discovering. And then one day they show up and they go to their doctor's office and randomly they get in a physical or something and they get their blood pressure checked. Or maybe they went into their local grocery store and they stuck their arm in one of those things and all of a sudden had a discovery. So I do think that we should measure, and it's very simple. In fact, I brought with me here tonight I have a little at-home blood pressure cuff. And
Fantastic.
yes, for those of you who are watching this, awesome. If you're not, just imagine I have this little wrist blood pressure cuff that you put on your wrist, you push a button, and it does the rest of the work. And are they perfect? No, they don't need to be, because you can take it all day long, multiple times, and you can get kind of an average. So these, you can pick them up in most, like I picked this one up in CVS. I think you probably get one at Walgreens, and they're probably 50, 60, $70. Take a couple batteries. Well worth the investment, especially if you're no longer 25 years old or younger. If you're getting up there a little bit, because if you have high blood pressure for long periods of time, it's indicating that your body is in a stressful situation, a fight or flight situation, and it needs your help. And that's what we're gonna figure out tonight.
Amazing.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So to your point, what are the numbers? So the odd thing is these have changed over the years, but I'm going to give you the parameters that we're working with right now. So normal blood pressure would be 120 over 80. And I'll explain those two numbers in just a moment. If that number 120 starts to elevate and you get up to about 130, 135, 138, we consider that, well, I take that back. If it gets up to about 130, we consider that elevated blood pressure. Recently, they've changed some of those numbers where it used to be over 140 was high, and now I believe some schools of thought are lowering it down into the 130s as being high. So there's normal, elevated, and high. Roughly, we always were taught, so I've been practicing, this is now 26, 27 years, we're always taught that over 140 is considered high, and the bottom number should be somewhere between 60 and 90. And same thing, 80 is the ideal number. When you get between 80 and 90, it's elevated. All right, those are our general numbers, but let's break those down a little bit, because I think this is the fun part of understanding blood pressure. It takes the mystique away from it and the fear, quite frankly. So
I'm curious too, because do they move together, Bart, or do they move like one for the other?
They can move without each other.
Okay.
And so traditionally, we've always kind of talked about the bottom number being the more important one. And I'm going to walk through why that may or may not be. So just today, ironically enough, I had a client come in who said, we're talking first. I said, how you doing? Are you taking good care of yourself? And of course, we go through those conversations. And he said, but I got something new, doc, something's going on. I was dizzy over the weekend. I haven't had that before. I don't know if I'd call it vertigo or dizziness. So I went out and got a blood pressure cuff. Good for him.
Nice.
And he took
taking
his
action. I love that.
Yeah, just taking action, took his blood pressure. And for the first time that he's ever taken his own blood pressure, other than getting a physical about a decade ago, found out based on his numbers and Google that he had high blood pressure. He had no idea, no symptoms, and he was concerned. So I think a lot of people, when they get diagnosed with high blood pressure, it changes the game right away. Like, whoa, wait a minute. Isn't that like heart disease? Isn't these problems? And I'm hoping in tonight's podcast, we're going to simplify it and ease it up a little bit and recognize that the heart is a muscle. And if your body's intelligent, which we know that it is, it's brilliant, it must be raising the blood pressure for a very specific reason. And we're going to chunk that down as we go here.
Beautiful, Bart. So we're on the simple path already. So we've got this upper number and the lower number. Is it systolic?
Yeah. So we have two names of them. The top number is called systolic and the bottom number is diastolic. And this is kind of important to help understand these two. And I'm going to do my best to simplify it. So the top number, systolic, means this is the pressure that's created when the heart squeezes and pumps blood out of the heart. That's all we need to know. This is the power of squeezing. And if you can imagine, if it goes up and up and up, you're squeezing harder and harder and harder, and your heart is working harder. So think of the top number as how hard it's squeezing, the pressure that's being created by the squeeze. The bottom number is diastolic. That is the relaxation of the heart, opening up these ventricles and getting blood back into the heart so it supplies the heart with what it needs. So it's squeeze, relax, or probably better said, contract, relax, contract, relax. And this is where it gets pretty interesting when we start to understand this. And just for those of you that are going to go out, and I do encourage, go out, get yourself a blood pressure cuff so you and your family have one. Whenever you take it, you always take it 3 times. You're typically going to start on your right arm. You can do both arms. There should be relatively the same readings left to right. If there's a big difference, make sure you talk to your provider and help them understand why. Sometimes if there's a big difference, like over 10 or 20 points, it could mean there's blockage somewhere between the left arm and the right arm and the vascularity there. So make sure that if you do find a big difference there, get with your provider. We start with the right arm. You're always going to have it about heart level. And you're always going to do it 3 times. The reason we're doing it 3 times is because white coat syndrome is a real thing.
Even at home.
Even at home. Absolutely. And because we're looking at it, and we're literally creating stress in our bodies, and we're creating vasoconstriction, and we're making our blood pressures go up. Typically, when you do that, you're going to see the top number go up. That's the one.
Did we get a little pause on Bart here, guys? I see Bart paused. Can you guys hear me? Hello, hello. Thank you, Judy. Got it. All right, my friends, hang on. Let's see if we can get Bart right back in here. Thank you, Jess. Doing a little fun stuff on the back end team. All right. We'll get Bart back here in just a sec, guys. Think of all your dreamiest questions about blood pressure as we're on the journey. If you have a cuff, you can test right now. Start with your right arm. It'd be lovely. All right. We may be a moment here, friends. For those of you who have been to our tiny beach town, for those of you who are local with us, you know that the internet is quite the journey. Today, we actually got new internet at Balance, and it was a really fun day where everything went sideways, and it's all kind of right side up now, which is wonderful. Thanks for hanging with us. I'll give you an update once I have one. Dr. Bart's back. Hello.
Yeah, I'm back. Here we go.
Oh, there you are. Fantastic. Let's do it. Okay, we were kind of at the right arm.
Okay, so just a little recap in case people missed that or it didn't show up on the video. Sorry about that, folks. So we know a couple things. That blood pressure, if it goes unchecked, can be a silent killer. So we do want to monitor. Therefore, having a cuff at home, I think is a great thing. It's a small investment that can create big changes if we know what's going on. And again, blood pressure is a symptom that the body needs something from us. So it's very intelligent, and we'll get into this in just a moment, why it would raise up the blood pressure. So the way that we take it is ideally start with your right arm, and you're going to make sure whatever the cuff is, it's about heart level. So that's kind of how we want to do it. It's real simple. And you can do both arms. In the event that you do both arms, they should be relatively even. And when that happens, if for some reason they are out of balance, more than 10 or 20 points, that's when you definitely want to check with your provider because there could be blockage there. So remember, multiple tests, not just one test, and then you make your determination based on that. So even when I do blood pressure testing in the office, I always test it 3 times. And I take a pause in between, 1 minute in between there. So, and just a quick review on the numbers. Normal, if there's any such thing, is about 120 over 80. If that top number gets up to about 130, that's when we start to call it elevated. And above 130, close to that 140 range, is when we start to call it high. Now, no matter what the label is, still, we're going to break down in just a moment, why is your body producing? Why is it committed to increasing your blood pressure? And there's always a reason behind it. And what I tell you, it's not because it doesn't like you. In fact, it's trying to save you. And we want to help the body meet its needs. So the bottom number, what we call diastolic, top number is called systolic. The bottom number is called the diastolic. This number is usually right around 80 would be kind of the normal, but it can range as low as 60, but as high as 90. So somewhere in that range. And again, if you're in the, you're in that mid 80s, you're getting close to 90, we consider that kind of the elevated and high. All right. So that's just a little review in case you missed the first part of here. So now let's dive a little bit into kind of the causes of this. And I think that's a valid space and place to begin. So number one is stress. So, and I know that's just a broad thing, but we can't underestimate the power of stress. But I want to go into the physiology for just a moment here of why stress. And I think this is what makes everything about high blood pressure less stressful. So
amazing.
Yeah. So we can have different levels and different types of stressors. We can have physical, mental, chemical stressors. So the food that we do or do not eat can cause stress, the emotions that we do or do not have, and even how we do or do not move our body. If we're very stagnant through the course of the day, all these things could be potential stressors. The way that the body works in high blood pressure, that pressure, that upper number, systolic, is creating a lot of pressure to pump blood out, and you start to have higher blood pressure inside of your arteries. Now, there's a couple of things that do this. So there's a particular nutrient or a mineral that your body uses, which is called calcium. We hear about calcium in the body all the time. We hear about its benefits and its uses for things like bone, creating good bone and whatnot. But one of the reasons that the body has such an abundance, this is what's really fascinating about blood pressure, that your body will use calcium as the number one mineral to create vasoconstriction. So we have a huge abundance of calcium in the body for a couple of reasons. One, it is how you respond to fight or flight.
And it makes your teeth strong and your nails strong and your bones strong. It's
100
doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's doing a lot of stuff. Well, what's really interesting about that is because your body and your innate intelligence also believes that it's actually more important for you to be able to run away and avoid danger in a true fight or flight than it is to have strong bones. In the event that you were not eating from your diet calcium, it will eventually start to leach out of your bones to put into your bloodstream calcium so you'd have available for your sympathetic nervous system.
Wow.
So this goes a lot deeper than people really think of just why we would use not only just calcium, but what is the mechanism behind high blood pressure. So interestingly enough, and this is one of the huge keys here. So in all of this, I want to back up and just and say this. One of the primary reasons that we end up with high blood pressure is that your body, your heart, is trying to supply oxygen, vitamin, and nutrients to the cells, tissues, and organs in your body. I'm going to repeat that. Because you need oxygen, nutrients in different parts of the body, your body's increasing your blood pressure. So think for a second. Imagine if we decreased our blood pressure when your body said, I need more, and you decrease it. That's not good math. Unfortunately, we see this every single day. So we don't get to any of the root causes. And could we be causing more problems? And the answer is heck yes. We see it every single day. So let's go back here to the calcium thing, because this is pretty fascinating. So for those of you who study nutrition a little bit, when you start to pay attention to your vitamins and supplements, you've heard things like every time you have calcium, you should have a little bit of magnesium. It's either a 4-to-1 or a 5-to-1 ratio. So that's true. So for every 4 molecules of magnesium or of calcium you have 1 magnesium that goes with it. So when you have a lot of stress, you're using up a lot of calcium. But along with that, you're also using magnesium, which you have a much lesser supply. So in the human body, calcium is used for vasoconstriction, muscle contraction. So if you run out of calcium, you're out on the farm and you're digging all day long and raking things and cutting things down, you could actually become fatigued if you don't have enough available calcium. And again, that's part of your electrolytes, right? One of the other electrolytes is magnesium. If you become deficient in magnesium, your muscles will stay in muscle spasms. So here's the interesting.
So we're talking about cramps, muscular cramps.
Yes, precisely. Now let's take this on the level of high blood pressure. If you run out of magnesium. So what do we say? We had systolic is muscle contraction. Diastolic is relaxation. In the body, calcium is for constriction. Magnesium is for relaxation. And this is one of the reasons why blood pressure across the board is often very, very easy to help support by just taking magnesium. We hear all the time how important magnesium is in the deficiencies that run rampant through the bodies. Remember, if you are eating sugar, processed food, alcohol, and have stress, you're depleting your magnesium by 2 or 3 times the natural rate. And if you have stress, you're creating more vasoconstriction in your body. So now the blood pressure starts to go up because you have more contraction and not enough relaxation. So we start to see that systolic number start to climb up little bit by little bit.
That's so interesting the way you describe that, because I think it can also follow sometimes like lifestyles. So if you just feel like you're in a state of like whatever's going on in your life, where you're just really got like a lot going on, and you know that you are having trouble kind of relaxing, the body follows, right?
100%. And that's why, I think, shedding light on a topic like this on blood pressure, because again, as I mentioned earlier, too often we carry it as a tattoo, and very rarely is the cause of high blood pressure genetics. Yeah, some of your people in your family may have it, but very rarely is it genetics. It's really about epigenetics. And those are the things we're talking about here. What about lifestyle? So stress, no doubt, is number one. Number two, well, I take that back. Number one is not actually stress. Probably the single primary cause of the driver of high blood pressure is something called insulin resistance. So we've talked about insulin resistance a little bit on the show before, and this is a big issue. The challenge here is that no one tests for insulin resistance. Although for our listeners, I'm going to give you a little insight here. There are a couple of ways that you can, if you are getting lab work. So we run in our lab, we have a very specific panels for both men and women. They're comprehensive panels. And yes, there's a lot of blood that's drawn, but there's a reason for all of these things. So for example, we test insulin resistance in everyone, and you get a score. You get a score and you're on a scale and you figure out whether or not you have insulin resistance. If you have insulin resistance, there's another way to look at it. Let's just say that you have lab work and you have a couple markers. If you have, say you have your cholesterol panel, if you had high LDLs, low HDLs, high triglycerides, and high blood sugar levels, meaning over 100, that is another indicator you have insulin resistance. So, and I share that because very rarely are doctors out there, and everyone should be testing insulin resistance. Unfortunately, they're not. Yet that is another one. I'll repeat that. So it's high blood glucose, high LDLs, high triglycerides, low HDL. If you have that, and that is a very, very, very common pattern that we'll see when we do labs, you're developing insulin resistance. And the challenge with insulin resistance, I know I'm getting a little sidetracked here, but this is how it causes high blood pressure. And this rabbit hole is deep. So if you have insulin resistance, one of the challenges is it damages the endothelial lining, which is basically the inside lining of the arteries. It's the vessels. And once that's damaged, then our body needs to repair it, and it needs to increase the blood pressures to get more oxygen there. Because one of the things that your body needs to vasodilate, which is relaxation, and that's part of what magnesium does. It vasodilates through relaxation, is something called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is made in the endothelium. So if we damage that endothelium because of too much sugar and because of insulin resistance, we are now putting ourselves smack dab in the middle of leaning toward blood pressure issues. And again, not a heart issue. This is a lifestyle issue. So insulin resistance is probably number one in our country, number one cause. And I would say this, everyone listen to this right now. If you've ever been diagnosed with high blood pressure, have you had your insulin resistance tested? And I already know that answer. So that being said, check your cholesterol panel. That was probably checked. You probably had your LDLs checked, triglycerides checked, HDLs checked, and blood glucose checked. See if any of those numbers are adding up. If they are, recognize that there's a good chance you're developing insulin resistance, and that could be at the root cause of your blood pressure. So we have stress, we have diet, and I'm going to throw some other things in here that are often contributing to high blood pressure that we just don't speak of. Another one here is antacids or poor stomach acid. So we have a country full of people that are taking some type of antacid, some type of proton pump inhibitor, like a Prilosec and a Rolaids, a Tums, all of those different things. Now, the challenge there is this. Unfortunately, now we become very poor at digesting proteins. If we cannot digest our proteins, then eventually they get circulated into our blood and they junk it up. And as they junk it up, they start to create problems. And then we have to increase the amount of oxygen and nutrients to go solve those problems. So we have to increase our blood pressure. What I just described there is why red meat gets a bad rap. It's not because of the red meat. It's because we don't digest it properly and it's hanging out in areas it wasn't supposed to be and it junks things up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And just having like the increase of digestive fire, I know can help us feel so much better, A, and then B, ultimately help us a little bit with this blood pressure as well.
Yeah, 100%. And there's another one here, and it's kind of obvious, but it's important for me to mention, and it's obesity and being overweight. So your heart doesn't change with the size of your body. As your body grows, let's just say right now I'm 178 pounds and I grow to 250 pounds. My heart doesn't necessarily grow bigger to handle the 250 pounds. So it has to work harder. I have more cells in my body. They're bigger. They have more inflammation to fight through. So if we are larger, if we have more on our body than it was designed to have, we're not at our ideal or our best functioning state of both, whether it be weight or obesity, whatever you want to call it, increased weight or obesity. If we're not there, we are absolutely leaning into the direction of the body needing to increase our blood pressure to keep up with the demands that the body has. So hopefully all the listeners right now are thinking, so wait a minute, you're saying things like your body's doing this intelligently because it's trying to supply your cells, your tissues, and your organs with the needed and required oxygen, vitamin, and nutrients. So you're saying blood pressure, the increase of blood pressure is a sign of health, the sign the body needs to be doing something to survive. Am I saying that? I am. I'm also saying that we don't want it to go on for a long period of time. The bummer here is that we're not having this conversation. The conversation was saying, oh, it's high, it must go low. So now imagine for a moment that I'm just going to make this up and say that your right foot needed nutrients. So your body was producing more blood pressure, higher blood pressure to get the nutrients down to your right foot. And now we lower your blood pressure with a medication. Do you think your foot's going to be better off? Probably not. Right?
Probably not.
Yeah. So this is when we talk about what's happening in functional medicine. What is this big change of the perspective of where we're going with health? These are the things we're talking about, getting to root causes. And blood pressure is one of those things that unfortunately millions upon millions of Americans are tattooed with. And they're just walking around thinking, I'm doing what my doctor says. I'm going on these blood pressure lowering medications, and I guess I'm doing all right. And what most will find, because there's no alteration in lifestyle, that the blood pressure medications over time have to go up, and they have to double down. They have one for AFib, they have one for blood pressure. Then there's all these different ones to get it on. And we see this in practice. We see multiple medications. Whoa, we're going to pump the brakes here. The body's very intelligent. Let's ask it, why is it doing such a thing?
So let's say that you're at home and you're taking a test and maybe you do it 3 times with like a minute in between as you recommend. Like even that is kind of a symbol of it not being a static thing. Like your blood pressure is constantly changing just a little bit here and there. So if you find that you do have like a relatively higher blood pressure, Bart, like what would be the first question that you would ask yourself?
So I think there's a couple of ways we can go about it. And that's a great point, Dad, because at different times of day, you have different demands and different needs. So we can see some variations in blood pressure. So I do a fair amount of fasting. I'll give you just an example. And if I go really long in my fasting, I've depleted my body. I've worked all day long and I'm a little bit wound up, right? So this is a good classic example. Before the show today, I took my blood pressure and it was a little bit, we'll put it in the elevated range. I took some electrolytes. I did some breathing, sat down, drops.
Beautiful.
Those were my deficiencies. I was running full steam since, 10, 12 hours ago. So my body was just begging me for some electrolytes, needed more nutrients, and for me to shift that pendulum of being in sympathetic dominance into parasympathetic, kind of just into that relaxation mode. So I guess your question is, what are some of the things that we could look for?
Yeah,
So
like what's the next step once we acknowledge, like, okay, we've got a little bit of an elevation count here.
yeah, so I think if we then start to dive into, all right, what do I do? How do I help fix my own high blood pressure? How do I help my body supply my body with what it needs? I think the first one would be that we pay attention to our stress. And there are definitely some stress relieving techniques that I think everyone can do. And they're simple, they're safe, they're effective, and they're free. Those are the biggest ones. And the first most effective one is your ability to exhale slowly. So we always hear about if you're stressed, taking a deep breath, but really the effectiveness is taking that deep breath in. And this would be a good example. If you're taking your blood pressure at home, take it once. In the next minute, take some deep breaths in and see how slow you can exhale, and then return to normal breathing. Take your blood pressure again. There's a
It's
strong.
interesting you say it that way, Bart, because you're not saying take a slow breath. It's the
No.
slow exhale.
Precisely, take a slow exhale. If we can exhale slowly, we're telling our bodies we have control of our state. We might need to do it repetitively and have that conversation, but that slow exhale is usually much harder than people think. But if you can do this slow exhale, do a couple of those, and then take your blood pressure, you'll usually see a decline in the systolic almost right away. And I tell you what that does, it turns you into a monster when it comes to health, because you go, well, wait a minute here. I just took some action and I improved something that seems like a tattoo that everyone gets for a lifetime. And the answer is, hell yeah, you did. So it's kind of fun when you have an experience like that. And I'm just scratching the surface right now. So, right. So that's number one. The other one I want to throw right in there because it's important. If you're not sleeping, don't test your blood pressure, right? Because we heal when we sleep. And if you're not recovered, you're going to start to lean into vasoconstriction, where your body's going to be tight, your body's going to be under stress, you're going to be nutrient depleted because you haven't properly recovered and repaired. So in the event that you're sleep deprived, you've been traveling on vacation or whatever, maybe your kids have been keeping you up, it's probably not the best time to do it. And certainly don't make any big decisions about what you're going to do about your blood pressure then. So, all right, that's number two. And here's the fun part too. I mentioned magnesium already, and there's a couple others here, but so magnesium is one of my favorite go-tos, and it's always when it comes to heart cases, because one of the bigger challenges with high blood pressure is it stays and it gets stuck in vasoconstriction. Essentially, it's like a lot of people walking around stressed. So is the heart. Magnesium is a relaxation mineral. And so we also call it a yin mineral. So in Chinese medicine, we say it's a yin to the yang, and yang is the fire, yin is the cooling. So it's very calming to the body. That is why you see so much emphasis. And yeah, you can probably go on your Instagram or Facebook right now. There'd be like 25 different people, everyone from medical doctors down into, simple health coaches that started yesterday talking about magnesium. And you know what? They're all right. And there's all kinds of different types out there. And truth to it, they all work. That's the reality. They all work a little bit different. We happen to use one that's called magnesium lactate. It's just very simple for the body to absorb both into the tissue and into the blood-brain barrier. So we use that one. We love it. Take it at night so your body can sleep. We also know the benefits of it for helping us poop. I want to talk about it. Go ahead.
We had a question come in here on Zoom, Bart, regarding magnesium. And so we're touching on it now. What type of magnesium is best to take to achieve the 4-to-1 ratio for calcium to magnesium?
Yeah, so that ratio, you won't need to really concern yourself when you're taking magnesium. That's more about when you're taking doses of calcium. Okay. So when we don't want to have the calcium without the magnesium, but if you take magnesium, you'll always have the calcium. So I think calcium is maybe like 10-to-1 greater in abundance than any other mineral in the human body. So there's very rarely are we deficient in calcium. We might there's certain situations where people don't eat it or they're not absorbing it properly, but very rarely will you need to be mindful of taking extra calcium with your magnesium. Awesome. So it's usually the other way around.
Okay. So excellent to have magnesium coming in with your deep breathing.
Yes.
Long exhale.
Long exhales. And there's some other things too, like saunas. Absolutely fantastic. And I know everyone can.
Saunas, awesome.
Yeah, I know everyone can't have a sauna, but nonetheless, if you have access to a sauna, phenomenal way that over the years, sitting in a sauna, relaxation, starting to let some sweat, let your body relax. And it's that vasodilation, letting the muscles relax. Absolutely fantastic. I want to talk about a couple other nutrients that people can take. It's very simple, very safe. And that's the key thing here, safe. So magnesium, very, very safe. And its mechanism is through vasodilation. It's a relaxation mineral. There's another one in the B family. One of the products we used to use is called Cataplex G. They've renamed it, and Cataplex G was essentially vitamin G. It's in the B family, which is technically vitamin B2, riboflavin. So what this does, and this is a key when it comes to heart health, and its effect is vasodilation, but the mechanism is a little bit different than magnesium. So they are two entirely different things. What the vitamin B2 does, so, and I'm saying this very specifically because there's some vitamin Bs that actually create vasoconstriction. So there's a whole family. There's B5, pantothenic acid, there's B12, there's a whole bunch of different ones. Some of the B vitamins are designed to help create, they're not designed that way, but they naturally create vasoconstriction to give us some energy. But B2 riboflavin what it does is increases the amount of oxygen that you can push into the cell, and hence creates a vasodilation effect. So now we have two things that are very, very effective, and they can work fast. So that is the same one that I'll give for people if they have like restless leg syndrome, because we want to get oxygen down into the lower half of the extremities. And again, it's an oxygen thing. So sometimes people that have restless leg syndrome also have high blood pressure, but they don't know the high blood pressure is there because they never test for it. So it is one of the things that if you do that, can't hurt to go down to the local pharmacy or something, grab yourself a blood pressure cuff, again, $50-$60 or something like that, just so every now and then you can test. So those two vitamins, or we'll call them vitamin, one's a vitamin, one's a mineral, magnesium, and we use something, it's called Cataplex B2. So if someone comes in and says, Doc, again, I'm not treating anything. If someone said, Doc, is there a way that you could help me with high blood pressure? And I don't treat high blood pressure, but I do help treat people to become better human beings through systems, organs, and glands, and elevating those up. And one of the things that we'll do is we will help the body relax. We'll use some magnesium, but also use the Cataplex B2 to increase the amount of oxygen that's being circulating through the body. Now, sometimes if that individual has come in, and this happens frequently, they'll come in with their blood pressure cuff and say, Doc, and I can see the look on their face. They're like a deer in headlights. They're scared. I say, no big deal. And I will literally open up the bottles and I will make them chew on them.
Tasty, Bart. I know it.
Yeah, tasty. So imagine this though. Again, if you're out there listening, imagine when you went to your doctor's office and you were given your blood pressure medication that you've been on for the last 10 years. And now all of a sudden you're hearing that your body's been begging you for more oxygen and you've been denying it. Is there a possibility that we are increasing the amount of dysfunction in your body, or the aging process speeding up, or we're making the mitochondria work harder? Yeah. So now imagine in this weirdo world that the doctor said, well, before we put you on a medication, would you be open to maybe right here while we're in the office, chewing on a couple of these tablets, and let's retest your blood pressure a couple of times. Let's have an electrolyte drink and then retest your blood pressure in an hour or two. And all of a sudden it started to go down. So
pretty powerful, Bart.
Yeah, it'd be huge.
It'd be great. Is it, we just have a question coming in. Is it chewing on magnesium or is it chewing on the Cataplex B2?
It's on the B2, or another one that we use, especially if you've been dealing with this for a while. Meaning that if I have a person and I know that their nutrients, basically their diet isn't that great, I will also include something called Cardio Plus. Cardio Plus is another supplement, and it has that B2 in it, but it also supplies all the other nutrients that you need for a healthy heart.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so remember, folks, in the event that bottom number isn't going up, unfortunately, now we have a nutrient deprivation deficiency to the heart. And that's when things get a little tricky. Because now you're asking this guy to run all day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, et cetera, and it doesn't have the nutrients to do it. that's when we start to see dysfunction and disease in the actual heart itself.
Bart, for the chewing on the Cardio Plus, that's something that we could do at home as well, right?
100%. We have a lot of people that do it. And of course, we're going to call them weird that they chew on their supplements and they taste a little bit like dirt, which is okay.
Yeah, dirt tastes okay. It's okay.
Yeah, I take that back. They don't taste that bad. I think the concept is worse than the actual taste.
Truly.
I'm sure there's listeners listening right now that have done it in our office, because it's not uncommon that someone will say, this is going on, or I'll have an arrhythmia, or I have AFib or something, and I'll make them chew up a bunch of vitamins. And the beauty is that all of those things are a deficiency. That is, your body is deficient in something. It's deficient in oxygen. It's deficient in a vitamin. It's deficient in a nutrient, deficient in magnesium. It's deficient in something. And if we are instantly able to provide the body with that, oftentimes the body goes, oh, thank you. Is it the cure? No, it's not the cure. Then we have to then move forward with making some of the changes. And what are those changes? So we're not just going to, approach this in, I'm going to take a bunch of supplements and try to make everything better. Oh, excuse me. Our diet has to be clean. Mm-hmm. If we are, and again, we talk about the diet often here on the Health Made Simple show.
It's part of that diet is those cod liver supplements. Our friend Judy is writing in, like, we're talking about chewing on supplements, and like chewing on that cod liver supplement is so delicious in ways that, like, if you have never had the opportunity to have a high quality cod liver supplement, it's actually quite tasty. And I know you probably think I'm cuckoo, but the truth is it's really yummy. And just in that vein, Bart, if I can just ask you, like, so if you were to use the Cardio Plus, would you take that in tandem with the vitamin G or that Cataplex B2?
That would depend on the moment that we're dealing with. So often, if someone's blood pressure is spiking, there's been a stressful situation, they've been exposed to a certain toxin, there's chemicals in their body, because those are other reasons that I think can happen. You can have a particular bacteria or a virus. It could be a lot of different reasons where the body has become deficient. If it goes to battle, if it has a virus, your blood pressure can increase because it's trying to defend it using what's in your bloodstream. So your body, that's how your body circulates white blood cells and all these different things. So if you have more going on, you have an injury, it's not uncommon that your blood pressure goes up. So depending on the situation, I'll use all three. I'll use Cardio Plus, I'll use Cataplex B2, and I'll use magnesium. And that's probably more common that I do all three than I would one standalone, because I want to make sure that I'm feeding the heart, I'm relaxing the muscle, but I'm also making sure I'm supplying more than usual amounts of oxygen being available to each cell.
Bart, I love that we have touched on this point of chewing vitamins. We've got some more questions coming in. Can we chew the magnesium lactate?
I don't know that I recommend that. So here's a subtlety. So there's difference between minerals and vitamins. So vitamins are true enzymes, and they're going to have a certain taste to them, especially if it's an actual real non-synthetic vitamin. Minerals are literally like dirt. They're like dust. And it's going to be like gritty, whether it be calcium that you're doing it to or magnesium. They're all going to be very, very gritty. And I wouldn't recommend it.
Fair enough, Bart. Okay.
Yeah. What you could do is, because most times magnesium will come in a capsule. If you're really looking for that fast action, you might just dump the capsule onto your tongue and swallow it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Beautiful. What other things can we do to help more or less naturally lower our blood pressure?
So, and anything that could help us increase nitric oxide. We've mentioned, in fact, we had a podcast one time talking about nitric oxide benefits. And one of the things it does is it creates vasodilation, and that vasodilation increases oxygen into the body. And that is, the more oxygen you have in the body, essentially, that's the expression of life. That is as good as a longevity tactic that you could possibly find. We think of hyperbaric chambers. We think of all the different things that we do. The goal is to increase oxygen. When we have inflammation in the body, that's the bad side of it. So we want to definitely improve our diet. The biggest things right there, sugar and carbs. God's garden is what we need to eat. It comes from root plant tree, walks in the garden, swims in the sea. If anyone tells you it's okay to do anything else but that, they're not on your side. They're just trying to appease to your immediate emotion, but they're not on your side for longevity and for you being the absolute best version of yourself. Because if you put toxins in your body, you are now less than great. right?
On
There's
the nose,
something.
Bart, and it's the
Yeah.
truth.
All right. Those are the other things too. So should we probably be mindful of our alcohol intake? Certainly, right? We know this slows down, liver function at night, would impede sleep. If we impede sleep, we're tired in the morning. If we're tired in the morning, we're going to have vasoconstriction. Once we have vasoconstriction, we're going to produce cortisol. Cortisol releases sugar. That's the map to get to insulin resistance, even if you don't eat a lot of sugar. So we really want to be mindful and step back and just go, man, if I have high blood pressure, is it that simple? Is it really my body just trying to get me oxygen? And the answer is yes. So right away, I'll tell you that the answer is yes. Your body needs more oxygen because there's something's damaged, something is inhibited, something is deficient. And then we can look at other things. Of course, we get diet. You could beets are a good source of nitric oxide, which is fantastic. All our vegetables are antioxidants. The antioxidants, especially these phytonutrients that we get from things like broccoli and Brussels sprouts and kale, when we get these phytonutrients, they pick apart all the inflammatory marker, all the inflammatory things in the body, and they bind to them and they start to pull them out of our body. So a diet that has good vegetables in it, we know. So we have the cleanse that comes up in January, and we have hundreds of people that do it. And I say it every single year, one of the most rewarding feedback symptoms that I get is that people say, I don't understand. My blood pressure went down because I started eating a bunch of vegetables for 10 days, eating a bunch of
10
vegetables.
days.
Yeah, and their blood pressure goes down. In fact, it is not uncommon. We've seen this year after year after year that some people, because they stay on their blood pressure medications while they change their diet, their blood pressure drops too low. And they have that quandary they have to deal with.
Such a beautiful reflection point. There's so much change we can enact.
So, yeah. And then the last two, easy breezy. And we hear them all the time, and they're real. And it's sleep and exercise. So we kind of mentioned sleep already. So sleep is critical for healing. We heal when we sleep. And the other part is exercise. Here's the beauty of the exercise. When you do exercise, again, you're increasing detoxification, you're increasing hormone response, which is really, really important, especially if you have any indications of developing insulin resistance, because one of its down side effects is that it affects your hormonal body. So by exercising, you can combat insulin resistance. You increase the hormones like dopamine and serotonin, which then make you happy, which make you want to make better decisions in life, which make you eat better food, makes you a better human, which is pretty awesome. So sleep, exercise, diet, nutrition, have some good vitamins, get some magnesium. Would still, if I was going to put one on the top of all this list, it's magnesium.
So beautiful. Bart, in the case someone out there is looking to have this tattoo removed, looking to have a different view of their high blood pressure, would you be able to work with them? Could they do labs with us?
100%. And I really encourage you, if it is something that you have been tattooed with and you or someone you know that wants to get off it, we're happy to work with them, glad to, and help them become that stronger human being. Again, what would we be working with? Are we headed into the direction of, are we just trying to cure high blood pressure? No, we're trying to improve the systems, organs, and glands. And when you do that, you give the body what it needs. The healing capacity, the potential is unlimited. So yes, they can. We could even set out those labs. We can mail them or email them to them, get them a lab requisite. Once we get those lab results in, we get on a call just like this, a Zoom call, and we figure out a good strategy. You take good actions and the game changes.
Beautiful, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight for All About Blood Pressure. As always, we love having you here on the show.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. Hopefully this has been another Health Made Simple show that impacts your lives and hopefully the lives of other people. So keep doing your part in spreading out, spreading the love, keep sharing things out. If you get an opportunity to give us a review, that's certainly beneficial. Leave a comment. That's fantastic. And we're going to continue to take deliberate action. Make sure we take deliberate action for the mind, the body, overall wellness. Y'all be awesome.